Hello everyone. Welcome to the episode 2 of A Morning Swim with Hidden Squids. Today we're going to have a more broad conversation about the video game industry and a trend and whether it's either better for gaming or if it's actually kind of detrimental overall. And that is the topic of early accesses / releasing the game before it's ready. There's a lot of games recently with the invention of the internet. Steam in specific is obviously a huge platform. It's a great platform in my honest opinion, but it's really allowed a lot of games to obviously come out in early access or for publishers to be pressured to push their game out sooner than later because the idea of patches. Patches are a great idea because obviously we can fix anything after the game comes out. So if you ever had a favorite game growing up, you're like, oh, I wish they would have balanced this, or I wish they would have changed that. They really couldn't. It was on a hard CD. I mean, I'm talking, if you're like 18 years old and watching this, I mean, you might be on the back end of that. I mean, I'm not that much. Well, I'm about a decade older than if you're in your teens and all that. But there was a point in video games where, it came on a hard disk and that was it. You didn't hook up, you didn't play on a hard disk, then hook up to the internet. No, it was on a hard disk, and then you were done. Like, that was it. Then we had that nice transition period where it was, like I said, it was a hard disk, but you still hooked up to the internet, and then you could get updates, which was pretty cool. But hard disks are essentially a thing of the past now. They're not really going to come back in terms of, like, the game's done once it comes out, which I think overall is a benefit to the video game industry. However, I do think it allows for money traps / laziness on certain ends of it. And a couple of games I want to talk about are obviously Cyberpunk, and I actually do want to talk about Darkest Dungeon as well. They're both games that are utilizing this world of we don't need to put out a complete game right away because of there's a chance to patch it once it comes out. And I want to kind of talk about my opinions of that. Other games such as DayZ, I've played games such as The Force. All these games were in an early access phase, an alpha phase, a beta phase, whatever phase you want to call it. I believe even PlayerUnknown's Battleground was a weird beta alpha phase. We're going to kind of talk about all of that, the ways that it's affected gaming, and how the heck what we should expect going forward, and maybe our feelings on that, and if we should do something about it in the video game industry. I actually recently, about 2 to 3 months ago, played a crap ton of Cyberpunk. I really enjoyed it. However, I waited about 5 months since it came out from its release date. And it had a lot of patches already. I mean, when I was downloading it, I was scrolling through all of the patches that it had. And I mean, I can't remember, it was like patch 1.2. I played when there was a considerable amount of patching done. And there were still a couple of things in the game where I was like, kind of surprised they honestly didn't touch on that a little more, where I was thinking, I can't remember how long Cyberpunk was waiting to come out. I mean, I know Witcher 3, they hinted at something like that. So, I mean, what was in production for 3 or 4 years? I can't remember. I don't want to pin them to that. But the point is, I really enjoyed the game. Let me say that first. I know some people are like, oh my gosh, don't buy this game, it's not finished, it's not good, blah, 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 blah. No, I mean, I enjoyed it. I played it through twice, got all the achievements on it fairly quickly. It was a good game. I think I sunk like 70, 80 hours into it within 3 weeks. I really binged that game hard. I mean, I binged it hard. So clearly I enjoyed it. Absolutely. I would play it again, but it's already done. I probably won't post it on my channel. I mean, Cyberpunk's one of those single player games where, it's not particularly difficult, and I'm not going to be getting to guides and all that on it because usually games like that, you don't need guides unless you're looking to do a certain build order or something, which I don't really care to do at this moment. But let me talk about the release of Cyberpunk, because today's topic is early release / releasing before it's ready. Now, if I have my story correct, I believe the people of Cyberpunk were trying to tell the public, like, it's not ready, it needs more time, and they were obviously trying to communicate that via pushing the release date out and out and out and out. Here's what I'm going to say to that. There is a weird point where I do believe video game publishers and companies do just need a release, because there will never be a game that is fully glitch-proof, unbalanced. I mean, there's going to be all this stuff. And the reason why there is the internet exists now, and which is obviously the sole arbiter of why we can do this, but also the reason why the world can now know any little error you do across oceans, states, country. I mean, like, someone somewhere finds a mistake, it goes up on like a Reddit, a YouTube, and then suddenly, the whole world knows, and they're like, oh, I can't believe they never fixed or patched their game. It's like, if you had a couple million people looking at your project, I'm sure no matter how long you worked on it, someone could find a mistake or two on it. For example, even with the videos I make, I mean, I spend a lot of time reviewing them, going over audio edits, but after, a couple of thousand views, or the bigger ones, or tens of thousands of views, people say, hey, you said this word wrong, or like, why is that word accented, or actually, it's not the scenario. Yeah, I mean, people catch me in little mistakes all the time because I'm one person, and once you get tens and tens of thousands of people viewing something, they're going to notice something you did wrong. Therefore, I never expect a video game to come out 100% anymore. I do think there's a happy medium where the game is pretty much done and you're doing maybe visual bugs, maybe a weird gameplay bug that like takes a little more effort to break, not like I'm just trying to play the game and the game's literally not working. When I played Cyberpunk, it was the first one. There was a couple things I could definitely break, but it took a weird interactions or it took like a weird scenario for it to happen. So I'm really not too upset when I played, but I know a couple of people, especially a coworker of mine, said he was literally trying to do the main mission, and for some reason, the one guy just would not show up, like he just glitched out. Everyone thought he was there, but he wasn't, but the game wouldn't let him progress because he wasn't there. That's a major glitch, literally stops you from progressing the main story. That is something that we cannot have on a release. Now, obviously, other people were able to do that, but for some reason, his copy or his game just broke down right there. And that's just not very good or cool. It did get patched, he said, once he came back like a month later. However, I mean, I personally think that's unacceptable for the first time through. I've done a little programming in my days, so I'm not exactly sure how the code was like being built and how that could have even technically be possible. But at the end of the day, it did happen, and we do need to look at, would Cyberpunk have benefited from another 4 months? And the last thing in Cyberpunk I want to talk about is obviously the negative views and images of the game when it first comes out. That's something you just can't hide anymore. I mean, these reviews are permanent. It's not like people have to go tell a friend to go tell a friend to go to tell a friend. You look at something and the reviews are mixed. I know for me, if I'm not already very interested in the game, that's about all I need to see. I go maybe down to the first comment or two to make sure it's not like a, I don't want to put like a trolling comments. Because when Bethesda said, you'd have to pay for mods or do something for Skyrim got dumped on, and its most recent reviews were like mostly negative, and it slowly brought the game down to something I can't remember. I just remember that it was like a big deal because Skyrim was getting dumped on, which I really enjoyed Skyrim, and so did everyone else, hence why it was actually like a weird volatile reaction, because it was like, we love Skyrim to the point where you just kind of like, we view you as messing up as a company and we want to punish you. At least that's what I remember. Maybe it never happened, but I thought there was an instance like that. If you look at Cyberpunk recently, and I'm actually going to go pull it up here as we speak, I believe the recent reviews are actually positive again, but was the game? Let me see. But yeah, Cyberpunk's never going to be able to like really wash that first couple of months away, and that's a shame. So the recent reviews are actually still mixed, but the overall game's only 75%. I think the game is much better than 75%, to be honest. I think that should be higher. On the mixed reviews, I'm actually surprised it's not a little reversed, so I'm a little surprised. I'm going to pop down, try to find a couple of the most recent comments to see what's happening here. So at the end of the day, a game that actually has a little bit of an opposite, because like I said, right now the reviews are actually mostly, are mixed right now, but the game's mostly positive. And I think people felt a little lied to that there wasn't as much to do and the game wasn't completed. And a similar situation, but I believe trending the upright direction, is a game called No Man's Sky. This game was released well before it should have been. There was like nothing there. Everyone dunked on it. But over the past, oh my gosh, it was like four-ish years now. I might be off on that. They've been slowly improving. A lot of people are enjoying it now. They have like some of the stuff they finally promised at launch. I feel like Cyberpunk's a little behind on that and all that stuff. And I do actually want to transition all of this into obviously Darkest Dungeon 2. So about Darkest Dungeon 2, would I buy Darkest Dungeon 2 on Epic Games just to play it earlier if I was a casual consumer? I would not. I would not buy it on Epic Games, and honestly, if they said it's early release or early access, I would not buy it on Steam either. The sole fact I'm going to buy Darkest Dungeon 2 well before it's ready is the fact that I have a YouTube channel. And let me explain why my hesitation of buying games on early access or early release that are going to change. I don't want to play a game where I can pretty much experience the story, but in a couple of months, the whole entire gameplay is going to be different. I mean, I just don't want to do that. Because for Darkest Dungeon 2, unless they completely overhaul essentially how their mechanics work, where they add a lot newer mechanics, the enemies are probably going to stay very similar. They're obviously going to tweak damages. They're going to maybe tweak mechanics. I mean, there's not that much to probably tweak with skills anymore now that accuracy's gone. They might tweak rows, they might tweak if it does damage or doesn't do damage. That's probably about it. Maybe they'll tweak how much gold you get here, how much things cost. All of that stuff is very important to the video game. Don't get me wrong. That stuff does need to be down to a patent science, and it needs to be enjoyable while still being difficult. The problem is once I beat the game a couple of times in early access, once you get to your full release, I mean, I feel like I've already played the game enough. It's like, am I going to go play it another 50 hours? I might. It might be that good. It's just, I always wait for games to come out of early access or out of beta phases, because there's only to me, there only feels like there's so much you can play before you feel like you've already witnessed the game, minus maybe a nice visual bug update, a couple of minor changes to how this is done. There's been some games and some instances where they actually did a pretty big overhaul from early access to the release product, but it's rare because usually these designers and developers want to keep their base mechanics and don't want to add too many more, because obviously that keeps pushing out the date when it's going to get released, and no one wants to do that. They want to, they want to release it. They have certain timelines. And for example, we still don't even know, I believe, when Darkest Dungeon 2 is going to come out. It is in a Q4 release, obviously. I'm thinking they're going to do it around November and December of this year. Why are they going to do that? It's around the Christmas times. It's around Thanksgiving. That should be Thanksgiving in America. They'll probably do it more around the holiday times in the world in general, just so they can get the most out of everybody, which makes perfect sense. I wasn't expecting it before December of this year, to be honest. When they said late 2022, I knew what they were doing. In the meanwhile, though, it would be pretty cool if they at least released a gameplay trailer or two, maybe in September, October. I enjoyed the images, but I really want to see one of their newest updated. I believe some of those images looked like they were not the most recent, and the reason why I say that is, and I hope it's not true, they looked super rendered. And what I mean by rendered is, it looks like they were obviously it's a video game. But to me, the enemies, everyone seems a little shiny, very clean. It just feels like they don't even belong in their environment. They kept saying, road trip to hell, everything's broken, yeah. But then they're super clean, sparkly, and shiny. It's like, let's dumb down some of those, palettes and stuff. Let's get them a little dirty. They may not do that until the game releases, or they may never do it. They may not see it as a visual thing. They might just say, you know what, they look great. They're the heads are the... Sorry, that still makes me laugh. The heads are the size we want them to be. They can be shiny because they're big and strong and buff. Leopard's sword can be the size of his whole body, whatever, It's visual. Games are very visual, though, but I will get very used to it. I'm just hoping that whatever they showed us was definitely more on the lines of, this was older, this is when the game was getting rendered pretty hard, and right now we're working more on cleaning up all the visuals because our base mechanics are cleaned up and stuff. At least that's my hope and ideal. So the Steam reviews for Darkest Dungeon 2, I actually haven't really looked it up in a long time. I looked up the bad reviews for the one video, but it's 90% overall, 93% recently. I think it used to be higher, so I'm wondering if this game actually became a little more... Oh, well, I did just see one dislike for the PvP, which, can you dislike a game for a PvP you knew was going to be a trial run for something? I feel that's a little bit of a cheap shot, but I really doubt it's the majority of negative comments. However, I am curious to see how bad Darkest Dungeon 2 is going to be received. Now, I'm not familiar with that big game store enough to know like if the reviews are right on the front page, but I'm worried that once people start seeing it and they have not been like fanatically following the release dates of it and all that stuff and the direction in which they're going, I'm wondering if they're going to see the new roguelike style and be like, they said this was Darkest Dungeon? That, or they're going to be like, okay, cool, standard 4-party, okay, you do more of Slay the Spire, then they get into it. And once again, I'm not saying it's going to be bad, I'm just curious if they release it to early access, if only a few dedicated people, now a lot of people are probably going to buy it, but what I'm saying is not as much as if it just released on Steam. And I keep talking about games as finished products, pretending that Darkest Dungeon came out and had absolutely zero patch edits to it, zero gameplay mechanics to it. No, it did naturally. Now the thing is, I guess what I'll say is Red Hook had a benefit. I haven't heard of Red Hook Studios before Darkest Dungeon. And I really didn't hear or buy Darkest Dungeon until probably the game was out for I think like 2 to 3 years. I think about maybe 2.5 years. At that point, there was no more patches. They were done. They've made their changes. I always played the game when it was in its finished state and product. Therefore, everyone else was like, oh, how do you... Because it was a comment months, maybe a year ago now. They're like, how the heck is an abomination with your Vestal? I was dumbfounded. I was like, you just do. Like, to me, it was like, you just do. So I actually had to go and type into patch notes, and it was Colors of Madness DLC, I believe, that actually fixed the abomination Vestal issue. But yeah, so I'm hoping the release... Darkest Red Hook is going to try to have a completely finished product, and they're going to be relying people on maybe small gameplay updates like this costs too much or these enemies hit too hard and all that stuff. What I'm really hoping they're not depending on is when the game comes out and everyone's like, these mechanics are terrible, or this mechanic needs to change, or like it's too short, or it's too long, or we don't like the fact that we can't change any, you know what I mean? Like, I'm really hoping when the game comes out, the core of the game is intact. They're not just releasing it 3 to 4 months early to say, oh, we just wanted to get it out so we could get money, and then we can always go back once we have, quote unquote, community feedback. It's a nice idea. However, as a video game designer and all that stuff, you should be relatively ready to have your game completely done. And if you're going this not complete opposite direction, but if you're going off on a fork compared to the first game, I'm sorry, that thing's going to have to come out looking great, and it's going to have to be excellent upon release. Because if it's not, and a lot of people are already iffy about it being on Epic Games Store, and then if it takes a long time to get out of there, or you don't have enough time to fix all the errors and then you release it on Steam and it's still not done, I'm very afraid on the initial response and feel for Darkest Dungeon 2. That, or people play it on the Epic Games Store, they beat it a couple of times and they go, well, that's about it, and then they never touch it again. Now, Red Hook got their money, but you know what? It's not played as much. It may not get the reviews on Steam that it should because it's on Epic Games Store. A game for me I played was called The Forest, and The Forest was in early access or beta, and it finished a couple of years ago, I think, maybe 3, I don't know. But the point is I played a lot of it in the early access, forgot about it for like 3 or 4 years, I think. My friend came back one day, he's like, hey, they finally finished the game, do you want to like see what the whole product looks like? And I forgot about it. I was like, oh, yeah, I guess we did only ever play it when there wasn't an ending. There weren't good mechanics. The enemies were weirdly programmed. I mean, it was enjoyable, but if he never said anything, I would have never gone back. It's not my Steam library. It's not like I got a big update. I didn't follow the game personally because it took so dang long. Now, Darkest Dungeon 2 is probably not going to quote-unquote be in early access because, well, early access in the sense that, like, hey, the game's not even close to done. Help us design it. I'd imagine it's doing early access because I believe Epic Games Store's, what was it? And they made a push about, 2 years ago, 2.5? They were really adopting a lot of games before they came out for people to obviously go on their platform. It was a huge push, and they still are doing that apparently. So I'm not really surprised that they probably offered a sum of money or whatever. I don't know. It's obviously financially related. There's no reason why Red Hook would agree to release it onto Epic Games Stores if it wasn't monetarily driven. I'm okay with that. People have to make money. But here's what I'm going to say. Your choices, your money, are going to affect the status of the game. Now, is there probably a huge player base who plays on Epic Games, who enjoys it, yada yada? Yeah. I mean, I own the Epic Games launcher. I think I play a game on there on occasion. However, would I have loved to see it come out on Steam 3 or 4 months before Epic Game Stores? Yeah, I would have, because I know it was at Borderlands 3. I might have played that on Epic, because I wanted to get that fairly right away. That's all preference based on launcher, but it is what it is. I'm just hoping that Red Hook Studios does not use this new era where it says, the game's like 3/4 complete, we'll wait for the community to clean it up in the last 4 or 5 months, and then we'll have the official game release. I know some people feel a little worried about the style transition. I actually feel much better now as they keep releasing more info. But I do think there's a couple of things in there they could have added or should add, but I don't know if they will, because once again, I don't know if this early access is just for a money grab, or if it's for, we want to update the game in secrecy because we don't think it's that good. Thank you for watching. I think this is about 20-25 minutes. I have a lot of... when I wake up, I don't always have the, honestly, well, this is the point of the podcast, I don't always have the best voice on, but there's a little bit of editing to be done in this video. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know what you think about early access games. I think the idea to go back and patch games and get them to a point where they should be is awesome, but some companies have certainly taken advantage of that and say, oh, we'll release it and then we'll just patch it for the next years to come. I think it's a little bit of a cheap shot. I'd like my games to be slightly more done, because guess what? They don't decrease the price when they release the game. They're at full price, so it's not like you're getting a discount usually when you buy the game. Thank you for watching.